Let me take you back to 2019. I was working for a company that was creating websites for big corporates and everything around the websites. And in my role as a front end software engineer, I actually realized quite early on that I share this passion about making things right, making these websites perform well, especially for the end users. And that was manifested in the way of me working very much with web performance and accessibility. So I was pushing these two topics as much as I could in every single project and the team I came. However, I wanted to expand slightly further. I wanted to share my passion with more than just a few teams. So I thought about starting public speaking. However, there was this huge imposter syndrome lurking over my head, which is still there, but slightly less small. And one day, our UX team told us that they're making a meetup that's going to be called Women in UX, and they were looking for speakers. So I saw my opportunity. I was like, okay, this looks interesting. So I'm going to have a room full of women working in UX. So that kind of sounds like a safe space, not too many people. And I can try to present my topic there. I can talk about importance of web performance and accessibility to this group. So I volunteered. My talk got accepted, and I prepared my talk and went to do it. After I finished my talk and opened for questions, which is usually the scariest part for me, out of the room where most of the people were women in UX, one hand was raised. And the hand was from a man who was very, very suit and tie, corporate looking. And he asked one very simple question: why? Why would I do this? Why would I give time and money and all of that to the teams to do performance and accessibility and to make this for website? Because it's going to take more time. It needs more time. And at that point, it was one of my first talks. I was slightly taken aback, thinking, okay, what do I do now? So, where did I go wrong? Because the talk was not technical, the talk was very much about whys. So, I thought something's wrong with the slides. Maybe I was too fast. Maybe something was happening. So, I went down this like spiral of these, like, how do I make this right thoughts? And I said, okay, I have a redemption moment where I can sum this up and give him the proper why. Why would you do this? So I did that. I summed it up. I reiterated some point of my talk. Nothing. Why? So we went through a few more iterations of that. And now that I'm a mom of a 3-year-old, this doesn't really bother me that much because of a lot of everyday practice. However, at that point, it started frustrating me a lot. As okay, why is my message not going through? What's happening? So, without any other ideas, I thought of one last thing I have, what I can use. And it was actually very fresh information I just found out, and really didn't think it was that important to involve it in the previous, in the whole talk itself. And that was the law. Well, it's soon going to become a law. And then you will have to pay a penalty if your site is not accessible, I told him. Okay, he said, and sat down. And I have to admit, I was shocked a bit at first. It's like, okay, seriously? So nothing else I talked about, nothing about building, a community, building this better web worked. Only this law worked. And as my role kept evolving, through more tech leads roles towards the consulting, especially for web performance and sustainability, I saw this more and more. Every time talking to stakeholders about any of these two topics, I would get the whys. And unless I used one of the two keywords, it was not really working. It was not going through. It was not getting prioritized. And those two words were money and law. So before we go any further, let me introduce myself. My name is Ines. I'm a front-end software engineer, and I'm specialized in web performance. And this is actually the way I came to the whole field of web sustainability. And recently, I became a W3C Sustainable Web Interest Group co-chair. And this is what I'm here to talk to you about today. So for anyone who is not familiar with W3C, W3C stands for World Wide Web Consortium. And W3C creates standards and guidelines for generally a better web, just to kind of make this baseline for everything that's happening. It was made back in 1994 by no one else than the inventor of the internet himself, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And ever since, it has many different groups that have emerged inside, controlling topics such as accessibility, such as security, internationalization, ethics, etc. And today I want to highlight one group in specific, which is group that working on accessibility. Accessibility is a very interesting topic that's very, very close to my heart, as I already said. And this is because it really works on this top of better internet. It works on the principle that it's essential for some and yet useful for all. And this is very interesting because every time we talk about it, every time I talk to people about this topic, a lot of people have a feeling that designing for accessibility is actually designing for disability, so people who maybe are visually impaired or are missing some parts of their body or etc. And it's really not what it is. It's in designing for inclusiveness. It's designing for everyone. So you may be visually impaired, however, generally no, but you also may be just in a very, very, very bright environment. So out of the sudden, you just don't see your screen, etc. So there's many, many different examples such as this. So designing for accessibility is, as I already mentioned, designing for everyone, designing for inclusion. And the first guidelines for this topic, first time someone tried to define what this really means for digital products and digital services was actually back in 1999 when the first draft of content accessibility guidelines was published. And as you can see here from this brief history, there were different versions. It was accepted as ISO standard as well as European standard. However, 20 years after this first draft in 1999, something very significant happened. So in 2019, European Parliament passed a directive called European Accessibility Act that would act as a baseline for later emerging laws by every single countries. And you can see here some of the countries that actually made legislations referring to this specific document. So European Accessibility Act itself specifies accessibility requirements, and it's calling out some industries, specifically because not all websites are made the same, So we do have these websites such as banking, transit, etc., that are much more important to be available for everyone, Like not being able to use your banking app is quite a disability. It's not including people who cannot use the internet on the same, on the same way that maybe someone else can. So with that, as you can see here, fines are actually beginning in June on 2025. And I'm super happy to announce that we are on the other side. So I was actually making this slides at the end of the June 2025. And I did remember it was somewhere around that date. I went to double check my numbers, and it was 27th of June when I was creating those slides. And I saw that the start date of these legislations is 28th of June. And I was actually quite excited about this. And actually, I was home, so no one really to share this excitement with at that point. But it was so cool to see that it's happening tomorrow, that actually from the 28th of June, which was for me tomorrow, the websites that are not made accessible could pay a fine. And it was such a long way from 1999 to actually come into this point. And as I already mentioned, so European Accessibility Act is the base for every single law. So every single country had the time until the June 27th. So with June 28th, this is starting to be active to implement their own law. So you can see here the law in Germany, which I'm not even trying to pronounce. So BFSG is the specific law in Germany that will be regulating this topic. And why am I highlighting this? Why am I talking about this? Because of sustainability. Because we are trying to reproduce something very similar with sustainability. And this is where the W3C Sustainable Web Interest Group comes into place. So for anyone who doesn't know, who is maybe new to the topic, so sustainable web design itself is defined as an approach to designing digital products and services that puts people and planet first. And to be honest, I've seen a lot of different projects starting to put this people part into action, creating good user experience, starting, of course, with accessibility that's now regulated, together as well with some of aspects of web performance, with Core Web Vitals becoming a search engine optimization ranking factor. A lot of things have been happening in the part of the people. But what about the planet? What does this mean for the planet? Why is this planet not included? Because a lot of times we have a third variable in the mix, which is prosperity. And a lot of time this prosperity kind of has a higher priority than the other two. No, I need to make money out of my business. No, a lot of websites are made for buying, for marketing, but in the end of the day, a lot of these things are for making money. So we come back to our two keywords, which are money and law. And those two words, what I've seen throughout my career, are two words that definitely move the needle and that make people actually consider these topics and integrate them in their projects. Now, actually, one of the last clients I had, I was consulting them about web performance and sustainability, and it was about a year ago. And at that time, the whole it was very much in discussion, the law that's coming, BFSG, for accessibility standards. So this huge panic emerged about accessibility. Is it accessible? Are we not accessible? We need consultants, we need people on this, we need priority. And I was standing there just like thinking, oh, I wish this was happening for accessibility and for sustainability as well. And hopefully one day we're going to get there. One day we're going to be at the same level that accessibility is now. So one more thing about this whole process of sustainability becoming a law in the end of the day, kind of becoming important, people realizing how important this topic really is when it comes to creating digital products, is that in the last few years, many amazing resources have emerged. So from great work the Green Web Foundation as well as Green Software Foundation are doing, from the Green IO, which is the conference that is bringing us all together, where I'm delivering this talk, as well as sustainablewebdesign.org, Sustainable UX, Climate Action Tech, so many more organizations and initiatives about the topic. And then we as well have many books. However, a lot of these resources are missing something, which is authority. When you want to push something to European Parliament or even just to the teams, to very high level stakeholders, get the importance of the topic, one very, very important thing is authority. How does this look like? What does this mean? What sustainable web really means? And this is where web sustainability guidelines come into place. So web sustainability guidelines were kind of a first draft. As you can see here, this is the first draft that we did back in August 2023 of trying to put into writing what sustainable web really is. And that was done throughout web sustainability community group. So on the level of W3C, there is different levels of group, which I'm not going to go too much into. I'm still wrapping my head around that part. However, there are different levels of groups. And originally, sustainability group was a community group. That's a group anyone can create and anyone can join. And this group was made quite some years ago by Tim Frick, and just to kind of exchange ideas, exchange all of this resources, new upcoming, etc. And this group grew over the time. There were more and more people. For example, me personally, I found out about this group through web performance. Actually, my colleague was on a web performance conference, and someone who was part of this group kind of told him about it. And knowing that I'm really much into this topic, he came back from a conference like, Ines, there is, this sustainability group on W3C. You should join that. And this is actually how I came into this group. So there is many people started coming in, and a lot of people in the group are also the same people that work on those in those foundations, as well as in those organizations that I mentioned in the previous slide. So as much as we were connected by the same passion, something had to be done about it. And inspired by what's happening in the accessibility, seeing European Accessibility Act already existing, and the laws were already starting to be created. Some countries were faster, some slightly slower, but seeing that this whole thing is in motion, the group came with the idea of, let's try to reproduce that. And there was a lot of time and effort put into creating this first draft to make this kind of first idea of what this is. And just for you to have a feeling how big this is, it actually has 300 pages with 93 guidelines. So it's quite a lengthy document with this. And in the last almost 2 years, it has been iterated over, of course, accepting feedback all the time. And one thing where you can as well see kind of better, and filter through it, see, because as I said, it's a lengthy document, kind of written as well, slightly more as a recommendation guideline style, no W3C style for every one of you who know what that is. There is sustainablewebdesign.org, where you can see this guidelines implemented in much nicer UI. So as you can see here, you have options to filter through categories with the tags, etc. And it allows you to start from where you want to start. So there are 93 guidelines. That's quite a lot, but you can also start simple. You can start to see, for example, from your specific role. If you are a UX designer, you can filter for UX, see which one are focused on your area and start there. Or as well, as you can see, there are also different tags. So you can see, I'm working on JavaScript. Let me check what there is on JavaScript. How do I make my JavaScript, my work more sustainable? So one more thing to mention here, as you already seen, we do have these different groups of guidelines. So they are segmented into these four categories, and they are that way because we also have actually 5 different task forces behind them. So we have user experience design, web development, hosting infrastructure and systems, as well as business strategy and product manager task forces working on each one of these groups. So these task forces have experts in every field inside of them, basically volunteering, donating their time and trying to define what this really means. And then on top of this, there is a measurement task force, which is, to be honest, in my personal opinion, task with the hardest one of them all, which is putting a number or a word or something like that on top of these guidelines. And this is something that I would send everyone looking this video as well as a homework. Please let us know, what do you think this should look like? So what would you need as a measure? How do we assign something, some level of impact to every single guideline? Every single guideline is different, and there are definitely some that are more easily measurable, especially the ones concerning tech, so such as web development. For example, amount of JavaScript is much easier to measure than, for example, is this product supposed to even exist part, So there's definitely not going to be a universal standard. However, if you have a feeling, what would you need in order to justify justify using these guidelines to someone maybe in your stakeholder team or etc., please let us know. I will share with you who to contact slightly later. So this is the team. These are different task forces currently working behind this. And amazing work has been done throughout the last few years and actually is still being worked on. So let me talk to you about some of the next steps. So as a group, we identified few different steps. There are education, tooling, adoption, and legislation. So inside of these four, there are many different parts that we can contribute to. Starting with education, we are planning to create some type of courses, for example, videos such as this, know me talking at a conference. Also, a lot of the colleagues from the group as well are speaking on different green IOs, etc. So trying to raise awareness and educating people about digital not being green is very, very crucial part of our work. Tooling, which would help us as well put this measurement in place. No, so define what it is. How do we use it? How do we really measure it? Because there is a lot of things happening right now, but it's a very complex topic that is definitely not an easy one to just put a number on it. So getting as much feedback basically out there from the out of the wild is something that we would really, really appreciate when it comes to this part. And then adoption. This is a huge one. So currently, a member of our team is doing an amazing work going through the guidelines, rewriting them in a more, let's say, a readable way, as well as seeing if there is any gaps, what we can fill out, if there is something that has to be updated, because as you all know, tech itself is a moving target as well as this topic. So to see anything that's changed over the last weeks, days, years, and everything. And at the end of the day, the legislation, no, to try to see what we can do to reproduce the accessibility path and try to make this become a law. And the work that has been, that is currently in progress about this is actually a newer version of the guidelines. So we have this amazing base to start with. It was a lot of work has already been done there, but now with these guidelines existing for 2 years, we are kind of smarter as well. We've got some feedback. Some people used it already in a real world project and are as well giving us ideas what to do. And there's also many new fresh pairs of eyes inside of the task forces. So the original task forces are definitely mixed and matched to have this fresh eyes inside of every single task force to put something new. So with that, I definitely encourage you to go check the guidelines themselves. There are quite a lengthy read, not the easiest one as well. So take your time, maybe like start with your role first. If you're in any of these different roles, no, more towards business, more towards development, whichever you are, you can start with your role, go through there and give us any feedback that you have here on the GitHub. So we have a GitHub project where you can go there and you can as well open any type of issue or anything to let us know, from the typo you may found to any ideas that you have, because in the end of the day, we are trying to create something that would become one day a standard, something that would benefit all of us, and then especially people and planet. So if you have any questions and doubts, feel free to contact any of us who are involved in kind of managing this group itself. So we have Tzvia, who is sustainability lead from W3C. We have Alex, who is the editor of the guidelines. If you submit something on GitHub, you're probably gonna, not probably, most 100% you're gonna run into Alex. So Alex is the one that I'm very, very confident that without him, this project would not be where it is today. So thank you so much, Alex, for all of your amazing work. I'm going to use this opportunity for that. And then, of course, Tim, Mike, and myself, who are co-chairs of the group and are happy as well to answer any of your questions and doubts. So thank you so much for listening to this talk. And yeah, hopefully you do your homework, so you check the guidelines and contribute to them and help us make the web more sustainable. Thank you.